With the playoffs coming to a close shortly, free agency, along with the offseason, will be approaching us sooner rather than later. Therefore, I thought it was perfect timing to take a look at a handful of key players that could very well find themselves traded before next season. We'll be going over fun stuff like contracts, possible destinations, and why it makes sense for these players to move on. And with that, here are 5 NHL players that could be traded very soon. I feel like the Flames are in a similar situation as the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, at least when it comes to the current core failing to perform during the key moments in the postseason. But, as we saw this past season, the end results were most likely far from what the team, its fans, and most importantly, management expected, as Brad Living was quite busy last offseason, but despite some key acquisitions and switching coaches, the team still has had a rough go of it, as they failed to make a postseason appearance. And, along with Sean Monahan, Johnny Gaudreau could very well find himself on a different NHL team for the first time in his career next season. As a forward who is one of my favorite players personally, just so you know, I'm not picking on Johnny Hockey, but he's not exactly what I would picture a Sutter type of player to begin with. This, combined with the team's current state, previous production, or lack of in the postseason, are all potential reasons that could allow for Living to listen in on offers for the previous 99-point scorer. Gaudreau, who is nearing the end of his 6-year, $40.5 million contract, valued at $6.75 AAV, is going to be an attractive piece for those looking for some offensive flair in their top 6. Now obviously, if possible, I'm sure Gaudreau would like to be closer to home, as number 13 grew up near Philadelphia. Now, a few teams that come to mind are the Boston Bruins if Taylor Hall doesn't resign, the New Jersey Devils, and the go-to choice, the Philadelphia Flyers. After the season that the Flyers had, I think it's fair to say that they'll be looking to make some changes this offseason. And of course, with the cap being what it is, I'm sure Chuck Fletcher will be having to make some tough decisions that could include bringing in some reinforcements to help form a new team identity. Sadly for Frederik Anderson, I think it's safe to say that his run in Toronto has come to an end. After some unfortunate injuries and circumstances, Freddie was forced to watch his teammate, Jack Campbell, remain between the pipes even after he was deemed healthy following the postseason commencing. The netminder definitely had an off season. Really, altogether, looking at his stats, as for the first time in his career, number 31 finished with a below .900 save percentage, and his worst goals against average to date at 2.96. Despite this though, at 31 years of age, the Big Dane could still have a lot to offer if he was playing for a franchise that showed that they had a definite need for his services. Remember guys, with a goalie, all is mental, right?
There's a lot of technicality in a goalie, a lot of mental in a goalie.
So as we see pretty much every offseason, there are going to be some teams looking for some help in net. A few that stand out to me as potential suitors for Anderson are the Edmonton Oilers, Carolina Hurricanes, and maybe the Pittsburgh Penguins, as all three have obvious needs in the crease that they're going to be looking to fix. But the team that makes the most sense to me out of the three anyways is the Carolina Hurricanes, as this is a team that's a contender that has an outstanding defensive core and a great coach, but above all else, as we witnessed this postseason, they're in desperate need of a bona fide starter in net. While his numbers really weren't great last season before his injury, Freddie wasn't half bad. Sure, he's not Vasilevsky or Hellebuck, but you have to take into consideration that Anderson held the Leafs in games long before they were decent defensively. But Carolina's system could really help the goaltender bounce back and benefit all potential parties involved in the end. Out of all players on this list, the one in my opinion that is going to be dealt first, and definitely for that matter, is Blue Jackets blue liner Seth Jones. As Jones has, according to multiple reports, made it public information that he will not be re-signing with Columbus in 2022 following his contract expiration. The Jackets, who are already in a tough predicament considering the Line A situation, the uncertainty about Nick Foligno returning, amongst other things, are probably going to want to avoid any more scrutiny from the media and to attempt to get their money's worth on a return from one of the biggest bargaining chips that they have remaining. Therefore, if I'm Jarmo Kekalainen, I'm definitely going to be listening in on offers for the previous 57-point scorer. In the NHL world, where right-shot defensemen are rare, while also considering his age and ability to slide in nicely on a top pairing, Jones is going to command a hefty return. A few teams that come to mind that could definitely use his services are Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Philadelphia. While it may seem odd that I'm entertaining the Philly concept, considering Columbus will probably be in the same same division for next season. Jones does have a modified no-trade clause on his contract, meaning that he can make a list detailing 10 teams that he does not want to be traded to. Therefore, for Kekalainen, his options will be more limited. And really, when you think of who could use number 3 the most, I'd say the logical answer is the Flyers as well. Jones, who has $5.4 million owed left on his contract, is the kind of player that could give the team the structure it so desperately needs on the back end. Speaking of Columbus, while they may not be short on quality centers at the moment, CBJ is definitely not inadequate when it comes to quality goaltending. As a team, despite having a rough season, had Joonas Korpisalo and Elvis Merzlikins both at their disposal between the pipes. While Korpisalo did have a tougher go of it statistically last season, I think we can all agree that he proved his capabilities in the postseason against Tampa after recording 85 saves in Game 1. While the likelihood of either of the tendies being dealt is pretty high, in my opinion, even though he'd be a little bit more expensive, Elvis Merzlikins seems like the overall better choice between the two. And a few teams that are in desperate need of a solid number 1 in net are again Edmonton, Carolina, and Pittsburgh. Honestly, I could see Merzlikins going to any of these teams potentially, but if Pittsburgh can deal Tristan Jarry and get his $3.5 million off the books for next season, it wouldn't be much more expensive to work in the $1.5 million more that number 90 would cost, as he's owed $5 million in total salary for the remaining year of his 2-year contract. And personally, as a Penguins fan, I would love to see Merzlikins in over Frederik Anderson, as he's much younger. While I did say at one point in time that I felt like Eichel was staying put, well, obviously the information about his surgery, the type it is, and the Sabres' unwillingness to cooperate, considering the type of surgery has never been done on an NHL player before, definitely changes things. And according to NHL insider Elliot Friedman, quote, "At the end of the day, I don't think the Sabres want to bring back Jack Eichel. They want to move on," end quote. So, it's definitely looking like Buffalo is going to be finally moving on from their captain sometime this offseason. Eichel, who carries a $10 million price tag annually until 2026, will be, after he's healthy, a player that any team looking to get over the hump and to take the next step could greatly benefit from. While I know several people have seemed to gravitate towards the New York Rangers as a potential suitor, the Los Angeles Kings seem to be another big name, but one that could possibly be a perfect fit for the forward is the Anaheim Ducks. Why? Well, they're a team that's culturally looking for a change, for something or someone, per se, to help to push a team that already has amazing potential into the playoff picture once again. And for Eichel, who probably wouldn't mind being about as far away from Buffalo as he could get, relocating to the West Coast would most likely be a scenario all parties involved would welcome. With Ryan Getzlaf potentially coming off the books this offseason for good, and John Gibson reportedly losing patience with the franchise, the Ducks are in need of a first-line center that's at the top of his game and ready to go. With tons of talent to potentially offer Buffalo, the Ducks could be the fortunate team that lands a previous 82-point scorer in the end.